There is a night inside you that never dawns. There is no sound there, no wind, just a continuous echo of what you never said. You think it's silence, but it's you too still to vibrate, a body too quiet to bother, a soul too contained to be seen, and it is in this emptiness that we begin. Tonight, you sleep realizing how silence shaped your personality. Before you relax, please like and subscribe. It helps me continue creating these stories for you. And tell me where you are hearing this story from. It's always magical to know where you dream of me. Have you ever wondered why you're so quiet? Have you ever noticed that instead of screaming when something hurts, you swallow hard, smile and say, "It's okay"? The silence you cultivate is not just a trait, it is an armor, a prison made of absences. You hide in the sound you don't make. Since you were a child, you were taught that noise bothers you, that crying is weakness, that complaining is selfishness. So you learned not to make noise. You learned to listen more than you talk, feeling more than showing, enduring more than I should. But what happens when silence becomes the only language you know? When the sound of the world hurts you more than what hurts you? When does your unsaid begin to speak for you? Carl Jung said that the persona is the mask we use to survive in society. But what happens when the mask is made of silence? When every word you swallow becomes a brick in a wall between who you are and who the world sees? You're not shy, you're cautious. It's not calm, it's numb. You don't live in peace, you live contained. Silence taught you to observe. It gave you a fine, almost psychic sensitivity. You feel the mood change in a room before anyone speaks. You know when someone is faking it, even if their smile says otherwise. But that same sensitivity made you a prisoner of other people's expectations. Because to realize so much, you had to disappear a little. And now, you barely remember where you start. You learn to adapt so as not to be rejected. You learned that if you stay silent, no one will get angry. No one will abandon you. But deep down, every restrained gesture is a silent cry for validation. You were never invisible. You just learned how to disappear before someone else did it. For you. And the worst part is that it worked. You were loved for what you weren't. You start to wonder, am I calm or was I taught to be silent? Is this peaceful way of mine really mine? Or is it just a reflection of the fear I had of disturbing someone? Jung would say that what you repress comes back, but it comes back in disguise. The shadow doesn't disappear. It just changes its voice. And if you have become accustomed to silence, perhaps it is because you could not bear to hear what comes from within. Maybe the real noise is in you. What if your silence was actually trauma disguised as virtue? What if what everyone praises about you, that calm, that peace, was just the absence of a voice? Maybe it's not peace. Maybe it's conformity. Maybe it's fear. Fear of being seen. Fear of being rejected. Fear of hearing your own voice and not recognizing who is speaking. Because you've been silent for so long that you've forgotten what it's like to exist in sound. You think you have self-control, but what you have is repression. The anger that doesn't explode. The desire that doesn't move. The pain that has no name. All of this is accumulated in a dark corner of your soul, the same corner, where you learn to be quiet. You don't speak because you don't want to. You don't speak because you've forgotten how to speak, because every word you didn't say took root. And now you walk through a forest of absences. Jung said that the unconscious is everything you don't want to see in yourself. But what about when what you don't see is your own voice? It is there, buried under layers of adequacy, of fear, of education. Don't scream. Don't cry. Don't complain. You learn to be kind like someone who learns to be silent. You are the result of trained silence. Deep down, you miss hearing yourself. Not from the sound that comes out of the mouth, but from the authenticity that pulses before the words, the yes you wanted to say but held back, from the no that you swallowed for fear of displeasing. You miss yourself, but you don't know where they left you anymore. This silence was not a choice. It was survival. At some point in your childhood, you realized that it was safer not to speak, that every time you expressed yourself, something was lost: love, attention, approval. So you learned to be silent to be loved. And the more you kept quiet, the more you felt like you belonged. But at what cost? Now you find yourself repeating this pattern with the one you love. You cancel yourself, adapt, mold yourself. You listen too much and talk too little. You care, you understand, you comfort, but no one knows what you feel, because you don't know how to say. You only know how to keep quiet. At some point in your life, you confused silence with maturity. He began to believe that talking was immature, exposed and weak. But maturity is not about keeping quiet about everything. Maturity is knowing what needs to be said and having the courage to say it. You are not mature. You are conditioned. Conditioned not to disturb. And maybe that's why, even among so many people, you feel alone. Because true silence is not that of the environment, it is that of the soul. It is the silence of not being heard because it was never revealed. You are not invisible, but you are hidden behind absence. You have become your own white noise, is always there. But he never says anything. Silence became his native language. You dream in silence, love in silence, suffer in silence. And now, even when he wants to talk, he feels guilty. Guilt of taking up space. Guilt of existing with sound. Guilt for no longer being just absence. You don't have to shout to break the silence. Just allow your voice, even if it's shaky, to be heard. Even if no one listens, speak. Even if it hurts, say it. Even if words fail you, try. Because healing begins where silence ends. You were not born to be mute, born to dance with words, play with sounds, vibrate with your presence. But they convinced themselves that love came from obedience. And you, wanting love, learned to erase yourself. Now you need courage to go back. Courage to make noise, not for the world, but for yourself. And maybe tonight, when you close your eyes, you'll feel something different. It's not insomnia, nor fear. It's just your voice coming back. It arrives slowly, like an ancient echo that finally finds space, like a whisper coming from the depths of your soul. She doesn't want to scream. She just wants to exist and be heard by you. You grew up thinking that being loved was the same as being accepted. And to be accepted, one had to be pleasant. And to be pleasant, one had to be silent. And so, it was shaped until it no longer knew where the other began and you ended. You became a reflection, a frame, a scene. Silent presence at parties. Understanding, shoulder to cry on in other people's pain. And in return, what did he get? A place invisible everywhere. It is possible to spend a lifetime without being heard. Living alongside people who love the silent, contained, adaptable version of you. But do they love you, or the echo of what you allow them to show? If their voice were raised, would they still stay? Or is that why you kept quiet so you wouldn't be left? And now he can't even remember if the biggest pain is not being heard or being abandoned. You were afraid of becoming someone difficult, fear of speaking and being considered ungrateful, proud, arrogant, fear of expressing and being judged for feeling too much. So he kept quiet more than he should have until it became a habit. Silence has become a way of existing. You learn to survive by disappearing, but surviving is not living. Living requires sound. It requires presence. It requires discomfort. And this pain you feel, so silent, so deep, it's the body begging for a voice. It's the soul asking to come out of its shell. It's the real me hitting the wall of the persona. You have become so accustomed to silence that it has become your identity. But silence is not you, it is what is left of you after so many renunciations. And now, in the middle of the night, As everything calms down, something inside you begins to vibrate, as if the ancient echo of a repressed scream was trying to be born, not a cry of pain but of return, of someone who returns to themselves after a long time away. You look in the mirror and see nothing wrong, but you feel like there's something missing, something unsaid, unfelt, unlived, as if you had forgotten a part of yourself somewhere that you no longer know how to get back to. Maybe he left his voice in childhood, or in adolescence, when he realized that speaking hurt more than keeping quiet. And today only ruins remain of that ancient voice. The corridor starts here, a place made not of walls, but of stacked silences. Every step echoes like an ancient secret, and on the walls, there are no pictures, there are phrases you never said. They glow dimly, like the lamps of a forgotten soul. You walk, and the ground seems made of petrified memories. You see a door. It is half open, and a light sound comes out of it, like a word about to be born. But you hesitate. The door is made of frosted glass, you can't see what's inside. Maybe it's your voice, maybe it's fear. You reach out your hand, but it trembles, because opening that door is listening to yourself for real. Inside, there is a chair, a table, and a mirror. In the mirror, you don't see yourself, because the reflection only appears when you speak, and you are silent. The room awaits you. The mirror challenges you. Speak or remain invisible. You try. The mouth moves, but no sound comes out. The silence has taken root, and now, to break them, it takes more than courage. It takes love. Love for yourself. Love enough to make you uncomfortable. You whisper something. The sound is faint, but it vibrates. And the mirror begins to form an outline. You begin to exist. Again. Jung said that the persona is necessary, but it can never be all that we are. It is what we show to the world, but never who we truly are inside. And when we identify too much with it, we lose touch with the soul. Maybe your silence is this persona, a protection that has become a prison. You used it to survive, but now it won't let you live, because every mask, when used for too long, turns into skin. You were always the understanding, the calm, the sensible one. But these adjectives, although they seem like compliments, are actually insults. You are not just that. You also feel anger, contradiction, and a desire to explode. But those parts, you threw them into the shade. And the shadow, as Jung said, always takes its toll. Every word left unsaid, every truth stifled, every desire denied turn into shadow. And the shadow doesn't disappear, it just manifests itself in strange ways. In sadness without reason, in constant tiredness, in insomnia, in boredom, in apathy. Everything you avoid accumulates. You look inside and see nothing, but it's not because there's nothing there. It's because what there is was hidden. Jung said that individuation, the process of becoming who we really are, goes through the integration of the shadow. In other words, it involves giving voice to what has been silenced. You begin to understand that the silence was a symptom, a code of survival. But now, it's not enough to just survive. You need to live. You need to integrate. You need to visit your shadow, not as an enemy, but as a part of you. And the first step is to listen to what she has to say. You enter deeper into the mirror room, and there she is, your shadow. She doesn't shout. She doesn't threaten. She doesn't judge. She just watches. She is you, no filter. You, when you're not trying to be accepted. She starts talking, and her voice is familiar, because it was always yours. But you ignored her. You'd rather be understood than be authentic. I preferred the peace of silence to the pain of confrontation. But now you understand the confrontation is with you. Carl Jung would say that all growth requires a dive into the unconscious. And your unconscious is full of sounds that you never allow to come out. They are waiting. waiting for you to acknowledge them, embrace them, tell them. You no longer need to be just a reflection of what is expected of you. You can be whole. You stand up, and the shadow doesn't disappear, it walks beside you. You understood that she need not be feared. She is your ally on the journey back to yourself. You don't have to choose between silence and chaos. You can create your own voice, a voice that does not attack, but does not remain silent either. And when you speak, the mirror is complete. You finally see yourself not as you've been defined, but as you are. Fragmented, yes. Contradictory, of course, but whole. The voice is no longer a sound, it is an existence. And it starts with you. You now walk within yourself. The ground is no longer solid, it is made of forgotten memories. Pieces of childhood, avoided glances, inherited silences. Everything floats like mist. You are in a dream that is not new. It is just a return to what has always been there. Hidden between the pauses of what you never dared to say, every door that appears before you has an inscription. Not in words, but in condensed feelings. Fear of disappointing, says one. Ashamed to exist, says another. You don't need to open them. They already live open inside you. You enter a room made of paper. The walls are blank sheets, each with a single space for your signature. But you never wrote. You've spent your life reading others. Now for the first time, you hold the pen, but the hand trembles. Because writing is affirming I exist. Jung said that dreams are letters that the unconscious writes to itself. You are now the reader of these letters, and in each symbol, a forgotten message. Silence was the first word in that letter, but she is not mute. She was just waiting for someone to listen. You find a well in the middle of a whispering forest. In it, there is no water, there are echoes. You play a word. It comes back distorted, ancient, like a sacred secret, and there you understand it's not the world that needs to hear you. It's you who needs to listen to yourself. The shadow approaches once more, but now she is not darkness. It has its shape, its smell, its presence. She sits down next to him, and for the first time, you don't compete. You recognize each other. You see yourself as a child, sitting in a corner, watching adults talk, and you feel that same old urge to interrupt, to say something, but it gets wet. Not for lack of words, but for excess of fear. Now you approach that child, and he says, "You can talk." She looks at you scared, as if she had never been heard. But then he smiled, because you recognize the same pain in yourself. And there, in that silent gesture, something is healed. Not with words, but with presence, with permission, with listening. The silence melts away like fog in the sun. It doesn't disappear, it just changes shape. He is now on break, not in jail. It's breathing, not repression. You can use it whenever you want, not because you need to hide, but because he learned to speak. You wake up in the same room as before, but now there is sound. A slight breathing sound. Yaw. And for the first time, she feels alive. As if your body was saying, "Thank you for listening to me." You are standing, but there is no ground. It is in itself, but there is no body. The silence is now a lake. You dive without fear. And when you touch the bottom, you don't find stones, you find words. All the ones you never had the courage to say. They are not dead. They are sleeping. Every sentence, every truth, every impulse, all stored like seeds inside a dark soil. And now, watered by your gaze, they begin to germinate. You hear the sound of growth, a faint snap of identity. Jung would say that the self, the center of the psyche, only emerges when the ego surrenders. And you now surrender. Not as someone who gives up, but as someone who accepts. You accept that you are made of silence and sound, of light and shadow. And that's why it's whole. It's paradoxical and yet true. You walk through a field made of loose words. They float like golden dust. Some are yours, others are imposed. You choose which ones you want to keep. And let the others go, like leaves in the wind. It's your first, free choice. There, without external voices, you hear yourself for the first time. It's a strange sound. It sounds like it's coming from the future. It's you, saying who you are, not who they expect you to be. The voice is firm, but not rigid, soft, but full of presence. It dresses you like a new skin. You approach a mirror suspended in midair. This time, don't wait to see the reflection. You create it. He says in a low voice, "I am here." And with that, the image is formed. Not like before. Now she breathes. The reflection smiles, but not with joy. It is recognition. It's like saying, "It took a while, but you came, and you understand." It was never about screaming. It was about listening to the sound of what was silenced. And let it become music. You hear a melody in the background. It is made of whispered words. You are more than you can handle. You are more than silent. You are more than what they made you. And each sentence is a key. Keys that open internal doors. Doors that were locked for fear of existing too much. You don't invade, you enter. Each room is a piece of you that has been forgotten. But now, you light up lights with your presence. And the shadows don't disappear. They dance. You no longer fear the darkness, because she knows she is part of the whole. Jung said that gold is in the shadow. And you finally find that gold. Not in fame, not in acceptance, but in the voice that was his again. You walk without direction. But now he understands that destiny was never a place, it was a state. A state of listening, of presence, of permission. You allow the sound to come back. Not the external sound, but the one that comes from within. And it doesn't hurt anymore. It's as if silence has changed its function. From prison, it became an echo chamber. You say something and hear it back. There is no judgment, there is no fear. There is only one cycle voice, echo, presence. You are complete. The world around you slowly dissolves. The walls turn into mist. The objects become symbols. Everything begins to float, as if in a dreamed memory. You touch time, and it bends. Here, there is no past or future. Just the now whispered. The mirror begins to fade. But first, it shows you something. Your reflection now has firm but kind eyes. His mouth is half open, ready to speak, or remain silent by choice. You smile, and the mirror dissolves into light. Jung said that the process of individuation is a never-ending journey. And maybe tonight you took one of the most important steps to recognize that your voice was never a problem. She was the way. Silence was just the road. And you are the traveler. You sit in the middle of this suspended space. There are no walls, no ceiling, no floor. Just the vastness of your inner world. There you rest. Because he realized that he no longer needs to fight to exist. Its existence is already, even without, sound. And when you close your eyes now, it won't be to run away. It will be one to remember. Remember everything that was saved. And allow, little by little, the forgotten to flourish. Effortless, no noise. You take a deep breath. And the air doesn't just enter the lungs, it enters the soul. As if you finally had space inside yourself. Room to grow. Space to say. Space to simply be. You feel like something has been released. As if an old knot had come undone. Not with force, but with tenderness. You didn't have to rebel. You just had to listen to yourself. And now, everything rests. The most beautiful sound is the sound of acceptance. And it's this sound that rocks your night now, a soft melody made of pauses and senses. There is no chorus. There is no verse. Just a silence that finally embraces you. You feel the calm like a river that overflows without fanfare. It doesn't invade you, it welcomes you. And little by little, everything that seemed urgent falls apart. You no longer need to understand everything, nor resolve what still hurts. You just need to rest. Carl Jung would say you have touched the self. Not with theories, but with presence. You didn't need to name, classify, control. Just felt it. He felt that he was whole, even though he was not complete. He felt he could move forward even without having all the answers. That's the power of inner listening. She doesn't correct, she understands, and by understanding, it dissolves. Like the sun that doesn't force it, just illuminates. Like the sea that doesn't push it, just rocks. You are being packed now. You hear a voice. It's not external, it's ancient. A voice you know, but forgot was yours. She doesn't say much, just one sentence. You have the right to exist with sound, and that's enough. You are no longer in the room. It is in the middle of an undefined landscape. A space made of sky, of breathing, of time on pause. Nothing needs to happen, because everything is already happening inside you. You waking up inside your own dream. The silence is now woven. You cover yourself with it as if you were returning home. It is no longer absence, it is delicate presence. A presence that does not invade, does not oppress, does not demand. You find yourself in the midst of what once hid you. You find yourself in yourself. Outside, the world will remain noisy. But here, between you and your unconscious, there is harmony. Not for perfection, but for permission. You gave yourself the right to feel, and so, now you can sleep. Not out of tiredness, but out of peace. Jung said that we sleep to dream what we dare not live. But you dared. He dared to look, listen, accept. So tonight, you don't sleep to escape. You sleep to continue. Keep remembering who you are. You are floating now. Not in the air, but in the lightness of not having to pretend. You don't need to protect yourself from what you feel, nor hide from what you think. You can just close your eyes and let the world slowly dissolve. Every breath takes you further, further away from the weight, closer to the center. You don't need to make any effort anymore. The gravity of sleep calls you, and you answer with silence. You hear soft footsteps. They don't come from outside. It's their own, coming back from where they were hiding. Steps taken in silence, but full of presence. You don't need to run anymore. You learn to walk inside. The world of dreams begins to open before you. Not with clear images, but with ancient sensations. Smells you didn't remember, forgotten textures. It's as if the unconscious is reorganizing its fragments, and in doing so I was retelling you, like a book that goes back to the beginning. You are in childhood, but not as a memory. It is like essence. You touch the ground that saw you grow, and you realize the silence had always been there. Not as punishment, but like a space waiting to be filled. Carl Jung would say that your soul always knew the way, even when his mind was lost. And now, as you relax, you hand over command, deliver with confidence, because he understands that there is nothing left to protect. What is in you is safe. Sleep comes like a tide that doesn't warn. It covers you little by little, in gentle waves, and you can't resist, because there is no more reason to resist. You have made peace with the night, and the night now recognizes you. You hear one last sentence before surrendering. It is not a revelation. It's a gentle farewell to what you no longer need to carry. She says everything you kept quiet about brought you here, and you thank him, with a silence that now is gratitude. The room you are resting in is dark, but there is light within. A warm light coming from inside the chest. It pulses, not as a lighthouse, but as a home. And there, in that inner heat, you dissolve. Not in absence, but in essence. Breathing slows down. The body surrenders. The mind loosens up. And the silence now is not the end. It's the place you've always come from, and where you can always return. You float through the words that were left unsaid, but now they don't charge. They rock you. They lull you like a poem that doesn't need to be read, because it has already been felt. And to feel is to say with the body, there is nothing left to prove. There is no one left to convince. You are enough, even in silence. You are whole, even in the unspoken parts. And so, you can sleep in peace. You don't dream of places, you dream of sensations, with the lightness of not being judged, with the silence that does not hurt, with the time that does not charge. You dream of what you always deserved. There is an open field inside your mind. The floor is made of reconciled memory, the sky of possibilities you never dared to name. You lie down in that field, and for the first time, the world seems to fit you. No conflict, no noise, only peace. The body is no longer a limit. He is shelter. You feel each cell rest as if it had finally found its function. Not being strong, not being pretty, not being accepted. Just be. Be with gentleness. Carl Jung said that sometimes you have to get sick to come to your senses, but you didn't have to break it. You had to be silent, to listen. And in that listening, he found more than answers, found the question itself, and he realized that she was you. Now every thought is a falling feather. No rush, weightless. They descend slowly, and when they touch the ground, they fall apart, because they no longer need to be stored. They fulfilled their role, to lead you here. You dissolve like mist touched by light. It doesn't disappear, it just changes shape, from thought to feeling, from presence to vibration, from voice to the silence that sings. There is no end. There is no apex. There is only a directionless continuation, and in that continuation, you rest, like someone who accepts that there is nothing to conquer, just something to inhabit. You inhabit the now, even if he has no name, even if it is made of pauses. You are pause. You are the space between one word and another, and this space is sacred. You sleep, but you don't wake up. You give yourself up, but you don't lose yourself. You forget, but it doesn't disappear. You remain, like a breeze after the storm, like an echo after the sound. There are no more words here, just floating. Images, mirrors without reflection, doors that open inwards, corridors that lead to themselves, and a silence that finally calls you by name. You hear your name, but it is not said with a voice. It is said with light, with the warmth of someone who finally recognizes themselves. It's no longer a baptismal name. It is a return name, the name only you can hear. You are suspended, not in time, nor in space. It is suspended in itself, like a note that doesn't need to be resolved, like a chord that chose not to end. And it is in this non-end that everything makes sense. The figures fade away. The doors close gently. The mirror disappears as if it never existed. But you still feel it. You feel the presence of everything that was touched. Nothing was lost. Everything was absorbed. Carl Jung would say that you are now closer to the self, not because he knows more, but because you identify less with what is not yours. You let go of other people's words. He let go of expectations, roles, fears, and he was left with his naked truth. You don't sleep like you used to. Don't sleep to escape. Sleep like someone who returns to the source, to the first memory, at the first sound, the one that was not said, but felt. The shadow doesn't scare you anymore. She withdraws with respect. You know you're seen now. And so, you no longer need to shout. You and she are not opposites. They are reconciled complements. The night stretches before you like a veil made of dissolved memories, of accepted pains, of silences finally heard. You cross it, and on the other side, you find the dream. The dream has no defined form. It changes as you breathe. It is made of symbols, of senses, of sensations. You dream of paths, not destinations, with echoes, not with voices, with what has not yet been born. but already exists. You feel a gentle weight on your chest. It's not oppression, it's presence. It's the body saying, I'm here. It is the soul responding, me too. And together, body and soul fall asleep, like two old lovers reunited. Now, everything in you is sea, not a rough sea, but one that rests after the storm. The waves are light, the salt no longer burns. You float, without direction, no name, no rush. And finally, without fear. The voice that guided you here is silent, but the silence that remains is not empty. It is filled with meaning. You no longer need someone to tell you what is right. You feel it, and that is enough. Words, once so necessary, now become ornaments. Only one thing was needed: rest, or maybe another, whole, but none of them are said. They just hover in the air, like leaves that no longer need to fall. Carl Jung said that we become real when we stop trying to be good. And maybe now you are becoming real, not ideal, not perfect, just real, with everything you are, with everything you feel. You dissolve into time. It doesn't age, it doesn't disappear. It just spreads, like a forgotten perfume in a childhood bedroom, like a memory that only reappears when the world falls silent. You turned into a breeze. Now, every beat of your heart feels lighter. He no longer needs to carry the world, nor sustain silences. It just pulses, just in case, for you. Nothing needs to be understood, not even resolved. Sleep does not require meaning. He just asks for delivery. And now you surrender, like someone returning home after a long time away. You sleep, but you don't disappear. You turn it off, but it keeps vibrating. You stop thinking and start being, without form. No border, just be. The real world no longer reaches you, not by distance, but by choice. You chose to rest, and in this choice, he rediscovered the essential. Not what you were told to be, but what was left. When everything fell silent, you don't listen anymore. You realize history was left behind like a trail of breeze, and all that's left is space, a sacred space within you, where the world doesn't scream, where you simply are. Dream images begin to form, but they don't come from outside, they come from the bottom, from a place where your soul still speaks with symbols, and each symbol is a key to yourself. You enter a temple without doors. Inside, there, is an altar made of silence, and above it, a single lit candle. It doesn't light up the room, it lights you up, inside. Carl Jung said that enlightenment is not imagining figures of light, it is to make the darkness conscious. And today, you illuminated what was hidden. No rush, no violence. With listening, how I am. You don't need to watch the world anymore, not even protecting yourself from everything. Now you can trust. Trust that your silence is not weakness. It is strength that does not need to be proven. It is wisdom that does not need to win. You dream of an open field. In it, he is sitting. The wind touches your face with respect. Nothing is charged to you. Nothing is asked of you. You belong. You touch the earth with your hands, and she recognizes you, as if to say, I've always been here. And you reply, me too. This is the final encounter. You can do it. The body is already sleep. The mind is already fog. The soul is a song without lyrics. Everything rests. Everything is grateful. Everything dissolves. You sleep. But something in you awakens. Awaken to that which has no form, for what doesn't need to be said, for what just is. Simple, huge. And there, where you cease to exist, is that he began to dream like never before.